Ladies and gentlemen, the American jury and Bulldog Nation, I am excited to do this video on Eric Deters, the law, defending yourself against creditors, because I think it will help probably more of quote unquote my people than anyone else or any of these other videos. I want to begin by saying this. Most of us, all of us, have been on both sides of this equation. We have been on the side where people owed us money, and we've been on the side of people that we owe money to. And the advice that I'm going to give to you today is as good of advice to handle these situations as you're ever going to hear. They are proven working maxims. They work. I wrote a book called The Butcher Pack. I've written 5 books, but actually 6. One's not published yet. But I want you to know that I tell everybody very personally what I went through from 2013 through 2018 in the Durrani litigation. I went broke. I went broke. I mean, I owed people money. I paid everybody back that I owed. And I'm now, as I'm sitting here talking to you, I'm now engaged in some more battle royales from both Durrani litigation, Saney's fraud case, building a media company. I mean, I'm doing a lot of things that cost a lot of money. I ran for governor. So in different points in your life, you might be on one side or the other. The thing that I want to stress to you before I give you all these tips and advice is there's no substitute for being honorable. Facts matter. If there are people that have wanted to borrow, I've lent so much money out, God, unbelievable amount of money that I've lent to people. If they come, depending on who they are and what their circumstances are, I'm giving it to them. I'm not even worried about them paying me back, even though they say they're going to pay me back. I also want you to know that the right thing to do is to always pay the money back. The problem is circumstances can change. And I'm blown away how some people do not recognize that. They don't recognize it. Circumstances can change. And I see people that are owed money be extremely unfair sometimes to people that owe them money. And I've seen some people who owe others money. I've had people that have owed me money who have not been honorable at all. They are looking for ways to cheat and screw you over and not pay. And that's wrong. So what I'm about ready to lay out to you has worked for me, continues to work for me. And it's honest and it's sincere. What I'm about ready to share with you, it's not scamming, it ain't scheming. And I have given out this free legal advice probably more than any other free legal advice I've ever given. And remember, as a retired lawyer, I'm allowed to continue to do that as long as I don't get paid for it. So this video, I encourage you to share with friends that you know that might be in a tough way. All right, rule number 1, always, and I mean always, respond. If you owe somebody money and they text you, respond. If you owe somebody money and they email you, respond. If you owe somebody money and they mail you something, respond. You know why? Because that's the right thing to do. And tell them the truthful facts. Here are some of your answers. 1, I am working on this, and give them some type of a timeline or time frame of whatever. Number 2, if you can't at the moment explain how your circumstances have changed. I don't know anyone if you communicate to them honestly and sincerely, unless they're a complete ass, most people will continue to work with you. This is funny. I had this business that went out of, I funded a business with this partner of mine that went out of business. And this guy left behind some messes. I have paid off all those messes except a couple that are left that I'm working on. You know what I've told those people? They said, I don't mean to bother you. I said, listen, I said, you can text me every single day. I don't mind. I'll respond. You're the one that got ripped off. I want to make it right by you. By the way, I even had a legal defense that I could have told all these people to pound salt. That would have been the wrong thing to do. But my point is, always, always, always reply. Now, just like all good rules, there are some exceptions. One of those exceptions I want to point out to you is this. If you don't have the money to pay a hospital bill, I want to focus on that, these hospital bills. And what they'll do, and sometimes other business, and they send you collection letters from out of state. You're going to get this collection letter over and over and over again, and it's stressing you out, and you don't have the money to pay them. Let me give you a tip that you're going to love. Everything they say in that letter is BS. As long as you're getting letters from collection agencies, and sometimes they disguise them as out-of-town law firms, you could take that letter, throw it up, and put it in a garbage can. You know why? Because they can't do anything to you. I just thought of something else I want to add in my outline here. They can't do anything to you. Nothing. Only when a lawyer, a real lawyer in your neck of the woods sends you something, then a lawsuit could be imminent. But collection agencies can't sue you. Collection agencies can't garnish your wages. Collection agencies can't grab your bank accounts. Collection agencies can't do any of that crap. All they can do is hound you. That's all they can do. So if a collection agency's on your ass, good for you. Now, a third thing along these lines, it's very important, is this. If your credit is already shot, in other words, your credit is shot to hell, you can play a little bit tougher because your credit's already screwed up anyway. Now, if you got pristine credit, you do not want to have your credit dinged, so you're going to want to set up a payment plan and things like that. By the way, most creditors love quote-unquote payment plans. But if your credit is pristine, you got to work this out because you don't want it dinged. If your credit is shot, you get to play hardball with creditors if your credit is shot. By the way, speaking, this is a pet peeve of mine. There's 3 major credit agencies. And this is plain, flat out wrong. All the banks use them. Everybody uses them. Do you realize anybody that you owe money to, even if it's disputed, let's say you disputed it. Let's say somebody says you owe them $10,000 and you don't owe them $10,000. Anybody can throw whatever to those credit agencies and ding you up. It's wrong. There needs to be a better system of what actually can be reported to a credit agency. And here's something that happened to me once. I fought this phone book company forever. They never did sue me. $11,000 dispute. I paid $11,000 of advertising, didn't get it. It was a fraud. Said, screw you. They reported to this agency, blah, blah, blah. When I sold my house and bought another house, the bank made me pay that $11,000 off. I'm like, why should I pay that $11,000? I disputed it. It's been 10 years and they haven't sued me. It is just so wrong. Folks, I'm going to tell you something. Despite what you might think, all the laws are written in favor of the creditors. Why? Who has the money to lobby state legislators, lobby Congress? The big corporations. Now, never ignore a legal action. Never, ever, ever. If you ignore a legal action in 20 days in Kentucky and 28 days in Ohio, they're going to move for default. And then they can execute against you, garnish your wages and all that. Always remember this. They have to get a judgment against you, a judgment, in order to garnish your wages, garnish your bank accounts, put a lien on your house, yada, yada, yada. That's what they got to do. Now, never ignore legal action. Why? You can even file an answer on your own, or a lawyer can file an answer on your own. But if you do that, then they send you to discovery, and you've engaged. You're going to drag these things out for a year. Any lawsuit against anybody, a lawyer could drag out for a year. Keep that in mind. All right, here's another important thing. Do you have a counterclaim? Drake Law recently was representing a young woman on an old credit card debt. Credit card sued her, violated some laws, counterclaim. By the way, sometimes those counterclaims could even turn into a class action, because if Bank ABC did that to you, they probably do it to a whole bunch of people. And I love that. Always email me and text me if you think a bank, an insurance company, hospital, or somebody is doing something nefarious. I want to know. You might have a big class action. All right, debt. If you get sued on a debt, like I said, you always want to respond. If you can set up a payment plan, set up a payment plan. Most creditors want to work with you. On foreclosure, man, if you get a foreclosure lawsuit, your bank files a foreclosure against you, don't ignore it. Man, that's when you got to file an answer. You know, you could stay in your house after a foreclosure begins, sometimes as much as a year. Not make any payments for a year, find your escape hatch or where you want to go to. Big difference. Evictions. You don't want to ignore an eviction because they automatically throw you out. And guess what? After they get the eviction order, you got 7 days usually to move out, and then you can even appeal that. Don't ignore an eviction. You can buy yourself at least a week to figure out where you're going to go or what you're going to do. Buy yourself time. I've already brought this up with lawsuits. Don't ignore lawsuits. Now, here is something that I have given this advice to several friends. And boy, did they thank me afterwards. One, I'm not going to mention their name, but every time I see the guy, he thanks me for the advice. He had a small business that failed. Well, it didn't fail, but it wasn't going well. I had a lot of bills and everything else. And he was like my age, getting up there, having all this stress. And I said, listen, you need to file bankruptcy. By filing bankruptcy, you can, by the way, where you really need to file bankruptcy, if you have unsecured debt, credit card debt, a bunch of accounts that you owe money to, you're upside down. Do you realize by filing bankruptcy, you can still keep your house and your car? You can still keep your house and your car and get rid of all that debt. Once you lose, everybody I've advised to file bankruptcy, as soon as you lose, you get past the dynamic of the embarrassment of filing bankruptcy and you make that decision, everybody I've advised that feels better. Now, I want to say this to you, and this is really important. Most of you, no one's going to know you even filed bankruptcy. You're not famous. Hell, if I filed bankruptcy, that'd be in the damn newspaper. But you can file bankruptcy, it ain't going to be in a newspaper. It's just not. Now, another thing that you can do, and this applies to all of you, but particularly those middle class, upper middle class, and more. Before you get in trouble is the time to protect your assets. Long, long, long ago, my first wife died of cancer. I was a practicing lawyer. So what did I do? After she died, or before, actually I think it was before she died, I created a trust, put the house in a trust, and I used this trust. And I've created other trusts since then. If you have your home, your biggest asset in a trust, by the way, I've told people this in the past, everybody ought to have their house in a trust. Let me explain why. If you got, let's say you and your wife own your house. You own Huntington Bank, $200,000 in mortgage. If you put your house in a trust, you still got to pay your property taxes. You still got to pay Huntington Bank. But guess what? Your house is protected from everybody else in the world. Any creditor, any account, a car accident, you get sued. Your house is protected because it's in a trust. It's big. It's important. My little battle with Chris Wieste and Corey Lewandowski is a great example. He hates the fact that I have all my major assets in a trust that was formed long ago. Long ago. It just makes good sense. This makes good sense. Eric Deters isn't worth a nickel. My wife's in my trust is where all my assets are. I say that publicly to share with you what you should do. You should do. It protects you. Now, if the trust borrows money, the trust can be obligated to pay it. If there's a mortgage on a piece of property, you still got to pay that mortgage. You got to still pay the property taxes. The other ways that you can protect your assets, and you got to do this before you get in trouble. If you do it if you don't do it before you get in trouble, they can file something called fraudulent transfers. And that, so they can try to undo it. The other thing to do is if you got somebody you really, really trust and you don't want to create a trust, is you just hold it in somebody else's name. Do you have a child that you really can trust till death do you part? Do you have somebody like that? If you're up in age, put your house in somebody else's name, your child who's going to inherit anyway, lease it back from them. There's all kinds of things. Remember, this isn't legal advice. This is educational. But I guarantee you, all of you who watch this, I just gave you some great ideas. The number one thing is always, always, always communicate. If you need me, text me at 859-250-2527 or email me at eric@ericdeters.com. And I will give you free advice, which I'm allowed to do without taking any money, or I will hook you up with a lawyer in my world that will take good care of you. This is the Bulldog. Every dog has their day. Thanks for watching my series, Eric Deters, The Law.